Good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Reed, and I'm the founder of DaaamnDaddy.com. And this evening, I'm having the pleasure of having a conversation with Miss Sherelle Avery of thesecretbehindthestep.com. She's having a blended, beautiful, and blessed brunch this Saturday, November 18th. And I wanted to kind of find out a little bit more about why she's having the brunch, why she started her blog, and how she can be a resource to you all in your community. So without further ado, I'll let Miss Avery introduce herself. And thank you again for sitting down with me tonight.
You're welcome. Hey, everybody. All right, so as she stated, my name is Sherelle Avery. I am a mother, wife, career woman, and now blogger for a little bit over a year. I started The Secret Behind the Step last November because I am a step parent of two, one 13-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. And when I first got married, I had a lot of different challenges with being a stepmom that I had to learn through. I felt like I learned them on my own. So I started a blog for other women who were in blended families who kind of deal with the same issues regarding like co-parenting, all of the court drama, baby mama drama, just being a step parent, being new to a family who is already like set. So, and all of those kind of anything regarding a blended family is what my blog normally covers. So my blog is your average blog with a little bit of a twist. We do features with other individuals that are involved in a blended family, and we do videos on the blog as well for the non-readers. I get a lot of that. Like, I don't feel like reading all of that. Okay, well, here you go. So that's what The Secret Behind the Step is all about. In the event, I'm having an event called Blended, Beautiful, and Blessed this Saturday. And the event is to help our community with any issues, questions that they have about blended families with resources in the building. So there'll be lawyers, therapists, other young ladies that are, single moms that have done it on their own. A young lady by the name of Keyshawn Johnson who interviews is interviewing 100 different women about the impact of their father being in the home and outside of the home. So just to bring awareness to, some things that we may go through that in our community we kind of shy away from or don't talk about. So that's what the event is for.
Okay, so you touched on several things that I wanted to know more about. No, that's fine. So one thing in particular, I would like to know, what's your definition of a blended family? When I was first introduced to you a few days ago on one of your panelists' IG Live, I'm familiar with her work and what she does with teens and with teen talk therapy. What stood out to me was that, you didn't necessarily define blended family as only people who are married. And it kind of dawned on me for the first time. I'll be 27 in a couple of weeks. Like, wait a minute, I'm a part of several blended families. So what's your definition of a blended family, and can you share that with the audience?
Yeah. So a blended family, okay, so everybody does like kind of think of the blended family as, the new party or the parent that's getting married or has gotten married to someone else that now has a step parent. But that's not actually the case. A blended family is a family that has any type of outside parenting going on. So if you're not the mother or the father or the child and there's an outside parenting happening, like outside involvement, like a stepmom, of course, a stepdad, if you're in a relationship like a boyfriend and girlfriend and somebody's is raising or parenting your child, you're then involved in a blended family because there's no longer just two parties involved with raising the child. I'm trying to explain it as clearly as possible without like giving you the Webster definition.
You know what? When I think blended family, I think Brady Bunch, and then I think Will and Jada. But based on the conversation you all were having the other day, I realized that, both of my stepfathers and then even my biological father's siblings, I've been close to them my entire life. And when my mom had my younger sister, she and I are 10 years apart, they kind of just adopted my sister into that family as well, even though my parents had not been together in a decade. And, she had no biological ties to them. They still embraced her as their own. So that's when I heard you say that, I thought about that.
Right. So blending, like just to kind of generalize it, it's whenever you have a whole and then you're adding something additional to it, you are now blending it.
Okay.
It's such as a smoothie or anything else. Like whenever you're grinding something all together, you are blending it. So that's basically what a blended family is. And I got that because learning from being in court when my husband was in court with his first child. The courts, then that's how they determine if it's a blended family or not. If there's any outside party that is helping raise the child, they consider that a blended family. So
I never knew that the courts
yeah.
were involved in the defining of that. So that's interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so my next question, as you speak often about letting love lead you, like I said, I read some of your blog posts just to get more familiar. What experiences from your own upbringing do you carry into your parenting style?
A lot. I think that a lot of, what we get from our parents and how we're raised is how we are with our children now. So as I stated in some of my blogs, and for people that don't know me, my parents have been married my whole entire life. They got married when I was like a couple months old, and it's just been, their marriage and then my two younger sisters. So I had no experience with a blended family prior to this. So all I knew was, I don't want to call it regular because now blended families are like the regular family, but husband, wife, children.
Nuclear family.
Right. So that's all that I knew. So when I went into my blended family with my husband, of course, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to love them and that's going to be it. This is how it's going to work. That's all I have to do. I was totally wrong. It did not work that way because sometimes the child rejects your love and they don't want to be loved by you at that time, and they don't know it. They just don't understand exactly what's going on. So a lot of trials and tribulations and things that I've went through, I had to learn to love the hurt away. And that is very hard to do. And you have to be very strong mentally, just to love someone when they're rejecting you. So that came from my parents. My parents, because that's all I knew. My parents were very great examples of love to me, my family, my sisters. Of course, I had cousins that were in blended families, cousins that used to stay at our house and come over, and my mom and dad would care for, we were like that family within our family. So, I learned that from my mom and dad. They taught us that love outweighs everything. And if I had not learned that from them, I don't know where I would be with my blended family right now. But yeah, that's one of the most important things within my blended family to me. And that's what I try to, portray and teach. And because, if you don't know, you just don't know.
I can sense that from reading your blog. And one thing that stood out to me in one of your posts was we need to make sure we're not raising hurt children that grow into hurt adults. And that was something that I blogged about a while back. Hurt parents, hurt children. About people who don't heal from their childhood and then they become parents themselves and never really take into consideration the pain they bring into parenthood. So I really enjoyed that about your blog, about how even when you talk about feeling rejected, that you always try to meet that rejection with love. You always try to come back and push love into your stepchildren. And even the fact that you take the time to consider their feelings and not just how you feel. I don't know if you watched the show This Is Us, but a few weeks ago, I was very frustrated.
Tell me, because I'm not caught up yet.
Okay. Well, there was a scenario where I felt like somebody could have considered the child's feelings a little more than their own.
Oh, the mom, yes.
Not even, I won't tell you which character it was, but I felt like this particular person kept putting their need for acceptance, like you were talking about rejection. They kept putting their need for acceptance above that child's feelings, and it was bothering me. I'm like, okay, I hope this week this person gets it right. So hopefully, there's some change for that character, some growth for that character. But I definitely appreciate reading that in your blog, that you try to, okay, well, it's not about me. I understand that these behaviors are a reaction to this change in routine for this child. And how can I ease that change? How can I show them and not just tell them that I love them? So I really appreciated that from the writing that you shared. My next question is a little bit more intricate. It's kind of like 3 questions in one. And how far into dating your husband did you meet his children? Did you meet their mothers first? And whose decision was it?
Okay, so here we go. It's a little bit tricky. So I met my husband in high school, right? So we were together in high school, prom, all of that good stuff. Graduated and went our separate ways. Of course, kids, you know. So we met back up and he had 2 children. Like, so okay, here we go. So he has 2 children and they don't have the same mother. So I met my stepson, which is the oldest, about I met my stepson before we start dating again. Because we knew each other from high school. So I knew like everybody. We went to the same high school. So when we met back up, it was just like a hangout type of thing with like friends. So I met my stepson in that kind of atmosphere, you know, just like, oh, that's your son. Like, hey, like that.
Okay.
So it was no really like I knew him prior to us dating, so it was no like introduction there.
Okay.
With his daughter, I met her when she was a baby, so so there was like no real introduction there. However, I met my stepsons, so there was because of the friendship in the past, it was no introduction to the children. You know, I just met them because they were his children and we all were hanging out together. So it wasn't, you know. So now with their mothers, it was different. With my stepson's mom, we met under bad circumstances in the beginning because it was like we were starting to date. She knew that I was his ex from high school kind of thing. So it was already a negative light, you know. So it was no, hey, this is my girlfriend now. There was none of that. It just was, I knew that she was his mom. She knew that I was the ex that became the new girlfriend again, and there was a problem.
So you didn't really get a fresh slate there.
Right. And with his daughter's mom, she was not really involved in the beginning. Like, you know, so he would have her sometimes, and then she was with her mom's friend a lot. So which was kind of weird to me. I was like, well, you know, what's going on with that? But when I met her, I met her once he went to court. So it was like, and there was no bad blood or anything, but once he was going to court to get custody of her, that's when I met her. And it was nobody's decision. It just was, we're all at this courthouse together. So there was no, I'm sorry, can you give me 1 second?
No problem.
My kids are here.
No problem. And that's a part of parenting. When you have a blended family, things happen.
Where's your kickstand? Put the kickstand up. Don't get away from it. Get away from it. Oh my God. I'm sorry, guys.
That's a natural moment in parenting. You don't have to apologize.
Son, his dirt bike knee breaks. My husband was doing it in my living room, which I could probably pass out when I walked in my house. And now he's trying to bother us. Almost fell on him. But okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so I met them both. There was like no introduction, no, you know, no like, okay, let's sit down and have a conversation. That came later. I already knew them prior to the conversation. So if I don't know if you want me to elaborate.
Sure, you can.
Okay, so yeah, with my stepson mom, which is he's the oldest. When we finally sat down and had a conversation, it was like you know, typical, and it was his idea. It was my husband's idea, boyfriend then husband now, idea. So I met, our sit down was prior to me and him being married, and it was because I was around a lot. And she felt a way about that because her son was younger. I think he was 3, something like that. He was younger, and she didn't want him to be confused about who his mother was and all of that kind of stuff. So we had to sit down about that. And I would say it went rather okay then. We had issues after that, but then that sit down was okay. And with my daughter's mom, it was the same. She wasn't involved. They had like no type of relationship. So it was, and that's, I just wrote a blog about that. I didn't post it yet, but there is a total different type of relationship when there is feelings involved and when there is not, to me, from my experience with dealing with my husband, who have two different children by two different moms. It was like, okay, we got to deal with some stuff with this because feelings are involved, and then some stuff with this because there's no feelings. It's just strictly about the child. So that's a whole nother animal. But but yeah, I hope I answered that question. I'm sorry, this whole dirt.
No, you did. I think what I gathered from that was that it really is unique to the situation for you, because you knew your husband from high school. There was no big to do, no big introduction. I shared recently that I was dating a dad, and how I came to find out about him being a dad and all of that. So his child, like with your situation with your stepson, was young when we first started seeing each other. He was 2 going on 3, and he's 4 now. And there was not ever a conversation where we had, I kind of met his son by accident. I came to visit one time, and then he was like, well, do you want to come in? And my son's here. I was like, oh, okay. So, there wasn't that conversation with the mom, and I did not spend a lot of time with his son for it to be a problem. So I just figured I'd ask that question for somebody who, you had that experience twice over, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, it was totally, I think I honestly feel that way because we did date in high school and we were young. There was no, like, people that I talk to now, this is totally different. Like, there's a big to do. Okay, well, when am I going to meet your child? How am I going to meet your child? When am I going to meet your child's parent? How am I going to, like, so that's a big to do. It wasn't for me because I was so young. This is my high school friend, a homie. I met them before I was even dating them. So, that situation is way different for me than other people that I talk to.
What advice do you give people in that situation? Because listening to you just now, like, for you, you were comfortable with it because that was your homie from high school. And for me, I was comfortable with not forcing a relationship and not rushing to meet that child, because I knew what it was like for me being attached to stepdad number 1 and having to see that relationship. And I was like, I don't know where our relationship is going. I don't want to necessarily have a relationship with your child and things don't work out between us. And that's going to be hard for me because I love kids, and it's going to be hard for the child. So, I didn't really press the issue or feel the need to rush that along. What advice do you have for people who find themselves in a situation where they're dating somebody who has a child and they want to meet the child, and the other person may not be ready for that?
Oh, okay. So that's the twist. If the other person is not ready, I say both people have to be ready at the same time. You cannot press, and I talk about this in my blog as well. Just because one party is ready to do something does not mean that the other party woke up that same day and is ready to do it. So you have to give people time. Definitely, if it's the parent that's not ready, I say, wait until the parent is actually comfortable, because you don't, to me, if they both are ready, I normally tell parents, if their relationship is becoming serious, that is the perfect time to meet the child. Once you guys become exclusive, I don't know what words people use these days. Like, if y'all dating is technically not one of the words that they use, but if you guys are now, labeling each other, or this relationship is becoming serious, I think that's, you need to meet the child at that point, because the child can really, if you let it, make or break a relationship. So some people may not have it in them to deal with a child. And I think one of the most important things, even before you guys become serious, even before you guys put label, is to talk about what that person's role would be with your child. That is key, because some people's expectations are not the same. Like, and it can stem from anything, from the way that person was raised, from an experience they may have had with a step parent, from an experience they may have had with their biological parents. Like, you never know where people's mindsets are when it comes to do with children or stepchildren or anything like that. So that's key, what I advise people to do. If you are dealing with someone that have children and you think, this might be him, first conversation before marriage conversation, anything like that, is, if you have children, what role would you like your girlfriend, wife, whatever, or boyfriend, husband, whatever, to play in your child's life? Because if you don't have that conversation, you are both going into this on your own will, and it cannot most times it's not the same thing. So you started with unrealistic expectation, and that can just go downhill.
I can agree with that. I'm glad you mentioned knowing your role in advance, because there would be situations where that person would share scenarios with me and I would have to ask before responding, like, do you want my advice as me, the individual, or are you asking for my input on what you should do?
Right.
So I really try to be careful about that, because at the end of the day, I don't have to deal with the consequences of whatever action you take. That's your child. We're not married. I don't interact with this child on a regular basis. So I want to make sure, like, are you just venting to me right now? Or is this something you want my opinion on as an individual, or my opinion of you in this situation? So I'm glad you said that, because I think that can be a cause for friction, especially reflecting on my own upbringing. With my sister's dad and my mom, I felt like there was no clarity, at least for me in the child's perspective, on who you are to me and what our relationship is supposed to look like. In the beginning, I felt like he had too much input, too much say so, and we had an altercation one time where I said to him, "You're not my father," and my mom felt like that was disrespectful. This person does all these things for you. But I think if they had that conversation in advance, and maybe because I was older, we had that conversation together, that scenario could have been avoided.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just a little, I know you're probably moving on to the next question, but I think our parents, like that generation, did not know how to properly deal with it. And I think, just period, with a blended family and things like that, they didn't know, like, okay, well, let's sit down and have a conversation about this, or let's, like, back then, to me, it was like, you're the child, we're the adults, like, and that's just it. And that's not healthy. Like, we expect these children, it's like I say in one of my blogs, we expect these children to be adult minded when they come into the situation. They just supposed to understand, know what's going on, be obedient towards it, and I have no type of feelings towards it at all, like they're adults, but then we still want them to be children. It's like, which one is it? Like, yeah, so that's weird.
When you say that, it actually made me think something completely different from where I was going with the next question. But I have some relatives who were raised in blended families and didn't know. I think the difference between what you're describing in not my mom's generation, but maybe my grandparents' generation,
Right.
they had that same "you're a child" mentality, but there was a lot more secrecy. I think a lot more people grew up in blended families than they knew, because if, like with your stepdaughter, if the child was an infant, this is your mom, this is your dad, and those other parents, they're not your parents no more.
Right.
So I think a lot of that was going on in the past, as far as people growing up in blended families and not knowing, and you don't know that you have a different dad or a different mom until you're an adult, and then that causes some adult conflict with you all, like, well, who are you?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. You'd be surprised how many stories I hear about that. And I'll be like, how? Like, what?
I actually had that conversation with the relative who was involved in that situation, and they told me at the time it was easier to raise a family without any discord if everybody was on the same page. So they came to an agreement with that person's biological parent that, okay, you won't have any involvement. I'm this child's parent now, and we're going to raise this family as one family. So they lived their entire life not knowing that particular parent was not their biological parent. And their siblings and other cousins, joke about it now and say, oh, we knew you were special. You always got an extra biscuit, or you always got an extra this or that. And come to find out that as far as gifts and things as a child, whatever person in their life that was giving them extra gift was actually from their biological parents. So when I asked that relative of mine, like, well, why did you do that? Did you guys not think about how that was going to impact this person as an adult? What made you decide to tell them? And, I find that to be very interesting, because I actually know quite a few people in that particular generation who've had that experience where they did not know until they were adults.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad that, now we have a better understanding of it. It is kind of, to me, it's bittersweet. It's sad that a lot of families are blended. Not so much sad, but it just shows like we don't work things out, or we just make rational decisions, and then we have all of these broken homes, And then on the up part, it brings more awareness to what we are involved in at the same time, because almost every family is blended. So, you know.
I saw when you were speaking with the young lady, Keyshawn, I think she said 33 of the 76 people who she spoke with had co-parenting homes or situations like that. So that was interesting. I like that she was keeping data on that. That's not, I always try to focus on whatever that individual story is, because I haven't talked to people with any direct purpose like her,
Right.
where I would need to collect that kind of data, but I did like that she does that.
Yes, I was shocked. I was like, wow. I mean, you see it now on TV and everywhere. It's like not a secret anymore. Before it was like a secret. It was something that we did not talk about. If your family wasn't the perfect family, mom, dad, kids, then you weren't, there was no light shined on you. Now it's like we have these TV shows and everything else that shines on blended families now, because it is the new normal. So I just think it brings more awareness, and we have to educate ourselves. We don't know everything. We think we do, but we don't. And it's okay to get advice from someone who's been in a situation or has learned something from it. Or like, for instance, like lawyers. The reason why I decided to have lawyers and therapists and people like that with those backgrounds and stuff there, because these are the type of people that blended families reach out to or need support from, or may have questions about, because there's always, the child is acting up. I don't know how to deal with their behavior or something like this. Maybe you need to sit down and talk to somebody, or the parent is involved. They're not doing this, or we have a court order, or they need to pay child support. These are all things that come with blended families. So I didn't want to just be up there, speaking about my experience. No, I wanted to bring in resources that, okay, here's a lawyer right here that can tell you specifically what you need to do in this situation. Or here's a therapist that can point out, okay, well, maybe if the child is acting like this, you should do this, and don't yell this, or sit down and try, So yeah, that's why I wanted this event to have the lineup of panelists that it has.
That ties into something I heard you say the other day, that you don't need a title to be entitled. But it also made me realize, like, just because you have the experience doesn't mean that you have to act as the sole authority. So one of my questions was going to be, how did you go about choosing those panelists? I'm glad you shared that, because I think a lot of times people who host events don't think about other ways to diversify the panel. And I when I saw that and I heard you say that on Instagram Live the other day, I was like, wow, like she really put a lot of care into this. A lawyer, and I know someone who's going through something, and I sent it to a mutual friend and said, hey, can you get this information to them? They might want to be at this event. There's going to be a lawyer there. They might be able to explain some things better to them and alleviate the system, the process they're going through a little bit better for them than just researching it on your own. My next question was not, I wasn't ready to get into the event just yet, but we can go there next. For me growing up, when I was younger, stepdad number one had 3 children.
Okay.
And we are all adults now and stay connected, and we jokingly say that my mom's favorite was my stepbrother. So my mom's like, I didn't have any favorites, and I was like, Mom, he was your favorite. And he was the only boy. He had 2 daughters. My mom had me, so it's 3 girls and him. She said, well, I just tried to make sure he didn't feel left out because he was the only boy. And so I called my stepsisters. I said, hey, if my mom had a favorite, who would you say it was? And my stepsisters don't live together, so I called them separately, and they both agreed that my stepbrother was the favorite. And my one sister was like, it's not anything we cared about. We never felt like she didn't like us. Just we knew he was the favorite. So how do you avoid favoritism, or how do you avoid favoritism?
Okay, so
I'm your favorite.
You hear my son? He said, I'm your favorite. So a lot of people say I have a favorite. So that's why I'm laughing like this. They say my stepdaughter is my favorite, but she's a girl. So she's my only girl in the house. This is my son and my stepson. So it's like, okay, get out of here. So it's like, I tend to do a lot more with her. However, I talk about this in my blogs as well. I spend individual time with each of them because each of them need a different type of mom from me. So, and which was hard for me to grasp in the beginning. But my stepson, his mom is involved in his life. So he doesn't need me to be whole mom, He has his mother figure. Of course, we do things together. We both step up when, it's time, or when she needs something. She can't be there, I'm there. Something I can't do, hey, can you do this? Like if he's with us, or, vice versa. But he doesn't need as much as me as my stepdaughter does. I am her day-to-day mother figure. She knows her mother. Her mother is just not really involved, and her mother is okay with me being who I am to her. Like a lot of people, and this might be off subject a little bit, but a lot of people don't understand my position with her mother, because I encourage time and things like that with her, but her mother is aware that she is in a better place being raised by me and her father. So she is like, okay, you guys do your thing, kind of, and I'm taking a back seat to this. I would like her to be more involved, but, she knows herself. So she knows why she can't be involved, and I'm not one to force that on anybody. But I understand. And a lot of people, they may say, well, why you doing everything? She just out there living her life, blah, 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 blah. Hey, I'm here to assist my husband with what he needs me to help him with. And he needs me to be day-to-day mom to her. So that's what I am. So so people say that that's my favorite, but I am back to the question. I spend individual time and group time with my stepchildren and my son. So one-on-one time with my son, of course, one-on-one time with my stepdaughter, one-on-one time with my oldest son, and then we do things all together, which is me, and all together with my husband. So it's like you have to really sit down and be strategic about the dates and the plans and everything like that. So so I plan dates. I plan dates with each of them individually, and I plan group dates. That's how I try to avoid favoritism, but I don't think I'm doing a good job.
So you mentioned on your blog, and you said it just now, that you consider yourself to be support for your husband as far as parenting your stepdaughter is involved. Do you feel like you are less support? You're less of just support when it comes to her as opposed to your stepson?
No, I feel like, okay, so that's why.
Well, let me read the whole question the way I phrased it. I'm sorry. Because your stepdaughter lives with you, do you feel like you are less of just support for your husband when it comes to decisions involving her?
Yeah, because I am, okay, so that's what we did. We sat down and we talked about the rules. So there is no outside. I make every decision for my stepdaughter. I don't make every decision for my stepson. So I'm not like just support. I am that, it's just me, like, so to say, like, so if her mom or if anybody wants her, or if she's signing up for something, school, anything like that, but we have a court order that says this. So, it's kind of different. So we haven't gone through like the adoption process. I don't see the need of it, because on our court order, I mean, we're married, and on our court order it states this, but I am her
guardian, legal guardian.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there's nobody else that tops me with, unless it's my husband. And that's just the way we set up our household. And her mother, like I said, she's okay with it.
Okay. So with that being said, how do your stepchildren address you, and how do your children address each other?
So they address each other, brother, sister. There's no, we don't do half and none of that kind of stuff. They understand that they have different moms. Like we educate them on what is going on in the family base, so they'll know. And especially because I started this blog and I share so much of my family in the blog, we sit down time to time and educate them on what's going on, what's what, and explain to them how our family dynamic is set up, as opposed to what their friend in school might think, or what, what I'm saying, because kids will say anything. So we educate them daily. But what was the first part of your question? I was about to say something else.
How do they address you?
Oh, so my they call me stepmom. My stepdaughter and my stepson both call me step. Yeah. And that is something that we all agree to. And that's just because like a lot of people, I have a blog about this, about the title. I'm not sure if I did a blog or if it was a little Instagram thing, but about the title, like why stepmom has such a negative light, and why do people shine away from it? They'd rather be called bonus mom or mom too, or mom. And I'm like, well, it all means stepmom. Like, so what is the why are we so afraid of the word stepmom? And I think it's because from what I got from, people feedback and things like that, it's because the negative light that comes with stepmom, it kind of like reminds them, I guess, of like the evil stepmother. So they
Like in
don't
Cinderella or Snow White and
or
things of that
and
nature.
I've had one person say to me they think that they do more than a stepmom, so they don't want to be called stepmom. They rather be called like bonus mom but I'm like, okay, well, same thing, different name, but
I think we're just as a culture in
yeah,
general society right now is having a lot of shifts when it comes to naming things because
yeah,
my mom had me at 16. So when all of her friends became grandmothers, they don't want to be grandma, they want to be glamma or
yeah,
all these other different cute little names. So it's funny because the Cosby Show is played on my TV right now, and I remember sharing in my Instagram story one time how I was watching it. I'm like, oh, this is where the whole grandma thing came. Sandra was having the twins, and Claire and Elvin's mom were in the hospital. Like, we're too young to be grandmothers. We need to be mother, the sequel. Just little funny things like that. And I'm like, wow, this was 30 years ago. People didn't like that. Wearing grandma.
oh my gosh, yeah, I don't the reason why we went with stepmom, it was a joint effort. Like me, my husband, and my stepkids, we talked about it at the same time. But that's what I am to them. So no matter what I want them to call me, like if you're their father, if you're their dad, they call you dad. If you're their mom, they call you mom. If you're their aunt, they call you aunt. I'm their stepmom. They can call me stepmom. Like, call me my title. This is what I am to you. So my stepdaughter, she started out calling me mom in the beginning, but I just don't like to take away from someone, and I understand that I do play the mom role and things like that, but I did not birth her. So to me, that is her mother's title. My title to her is stepmom. So that's just the way my family works. A lot of other families do not work that way. And that's why I say each family needs to come up. No blended family is the same. I can't stress that enough. So what works for my family may not work for your family. And what works for your family may not work for my family. And that's why I made sure even with the event, it's not just me pushing all of my to-dos or what works for me on you. No, I want to give you people that can tell you what may work for you and not, just what works for me. So
I like that you consider your audience in that way, and I try to do the same. I actually was featured on someone else's Instagram live the other day, and they were asking me questions, and I just felt like, when I feel that I have a bias, I try to share that. We were talking about, for me, I'm the child of an incarcerated parent, so I was coming from a place where Meek Mill is in prison, is serving his time.
right.
I'm not concerned about the legalities of it the way a lot of other people are. I'm thinking about, you did something that's going to put your children, take you out of your children's lives. And I understand that that's a bias for me because that's how I felt growing up. Like, you did something that took you out of my life.
Right.
So I like that you address that, and you try to be aware of how you're stating things so as not to force your ideals on anyone.
Absolutely.
So I saw one of your posts featured Samantha from Love and Hip Hop New York. How did you wind up meeting her and getting her to agree to this conversation with you?
So, okay, so it always goes back to like me, I am a networking junkie. So I network with people any way that I can. So I went to an event in New York, and I met a couple cool people, and one of them knew her. And I, told them about my blog. Long story short, I sent her a DM and was like, "Hey, I met your friend such and such. Told her about the blog. She verified me through that friend and was like, oh, hey, okay." And I was like, well, would you be interested in doing a feature? And she was. So it was like 1, 2, 3. Now Mashonda, on the other hand, I met her personally. I didn't put that feature out yet. It'll be coming out soon. But I met her personally at an event that I went to in New York again. And got her email information and things like that. And then, told her what I was doing, what it was about, and things like that. So I pretty much, if you don't meet people, then you won't have any type of connection. So I'm all about, I need to network. So to me, I meet almost everybody through networking. I don't have a list of celebrity friends in the tuck or nothing like that. I got to get out there and meet people. Like, I went to New York this weekend, and I met this incredible lady who got my life together in 5 seconds. Like, and she's very dope millionaire lady that does so much stuff. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Hello, my name is Sherelle, and this is what I do. So yeah, networking is how I met her.
So you mentioned that you started to blog about 1 year ago.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I was like, wow, this is a lot of content and a lot going on for you for 1 year. What type of goals do you set for yourself with your blog as far as growth, and how do you feel you've grown within the last year?
Tremendous growth, I would say that. So the goals are, okay, so the goals actually didn't happen until about 6 months ago. I started the blog, and when I started the blog, my background, I'm a very faith-based. I love God, I love church, I love Jesus, so so most of my goals and things like that come from my faith. So I started the blog a year ago. I'm gonna try to condense this in a short story. About 6 months, I started the blog. I was like, I was listening to all of this stuff, and I knew I wanted something for myself. So I was like, I'm gonna start this blog. But when I started the blog, my mindset was, I am in it for the long haul. I know that stuff don't happen overnight, and I know that I am going to have to put in the work first so I can build it up to be this thing. So to me, in my mind, it was like, okay, I'm not going to compare my year 1 to people's year 10. You know how you see people on Instagram and they on their year 10, but they got it going on, and so on and so forth. So so I had that mindset. So I was just day to day in it. It wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm just going to test it out. I've never had a blog before. I am not a writer. So like, if you went back, you probably could see the writing transition, because now I have an editor. Before I did not. It was all like raw, which people loved. Like, they didn't care about the commas being missing, the punctuation not being correct. It was all raw. Like, so, but now gotta tidy up a little bit, but you live and you learn. But so yeah, so about 6 months in, I was like, okay, I feel like I could do more. But I didn't have more time. So I told myself. So I was like, what can I do to kind of, I wanted my blog to become income. I decided that 6 months in. Remind you, at first, I'm like, I'm going to give myself a couple years just to play around with the thing. I had a crazy mind shift. I needed it to become income. So that's when I started to say, okay, what can I do to make this blog income? And then I thought of just putting stuff up for sale. Like, I have my Dope Stepmom t-shirts, cups, hats. I haven't even put them on the blog yet to even sell, because now my mindset has changed. So yeah, so then I was like, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to just start selling people stuff without them really knowing what I'm capable of. So then mindset shift again. I have to show people what I'm actually capable of. So that's when I started the whole networking thing. I knew people that kind of knew people. So I grew up with DaaamnDaddy, which not grew up with him, but knew him through mutual friends. And, he has this whole album, and I'm not sure if you know him, but he has this whole, he's a gospel singer, and he has like an album, and he knows like big people. And now he has a radio show here in Philadelphia. So I'm like, reach out, like, see what he's up to. So I landed that radio show. And then I met Patty Jackson, who's huge here in Philly, another radio host. And I'm like, okay, I got connected to her through my brother-in-law. And then from there, the goals were just set higher and higher. Once I reach one goal, I'm like, oh, well, I can do this. And then reach one goal is like, oh, well, I definitely can do this. So I would say after the mind shift and like 6 months after the blog, I was no longer like, okay, I'm just going to ride it out. Like, I still understand the grind time, but to me, it can happen a lot faster than what I was expecting it to. So I just set goals for myself, and I don't just talk about them. Like, I tell my girlfriends all the time, like, we was just talking about this before I started this. I'm on the phone with them, and I'm like, I don't care if they don't respond to the email. I don't care if they say no. If I would have never sent the email, it would still be the same result. But there's a possibility that the result can be different. So that's where my mindset is now. So because of that possibility, and because of my faith-based and, that whole I have a group of women that I involve myself with, because I have strong faith, but I understand that I have to play a part in this. And I think a lot of people lose that with faith. They think, okay, I have faith and I'm just going to sit here and wait for God to do it. Okay, well, while you wait, I'm going to work. So
faith without works is dead.
So yeah, I forgot what I was about to say before I said that. But yeah, I just started networking. I start emailing people. I start figuring out how people get connected with certain things, and then I started to do them, and it's been working. So yeah.
I'm glad you shared that. I have a similar story. It's been almost 3 years for me. In February will be 3 years, and I remember being about 7 months in and saying to a friend, "Nobody reads my blog." It had a different name back then, and she was like, "Girl, you know these things take time." And then I'm in a group coaching where the leader invited a guest speaker who had like this amazing success with her blog in under 1 year, and I was feeling really inadequate until the guest speaker said that she started out having over 5,000 Instagram followers before she wrote her first blog post.
Right.
So I said, okay, I feel better now because I did the blog before I even had an Instagram.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of doing it backwards. I'm building that relationship with people and trying to get them interested in what I'm doing, whereas you already had an invested audience before you launched this blog. So definitely learning not to compare myself. And I like that you mentioned not wanting to just sell people stuff without showing them what you could do, because people kept saying to me, you need to monetize your blog, you need to monetize your blog. And I'm like, but from what I talk about, how would I organically do that? I don't want to just be out here selling people t-shirts. I have great t-shirt ideas that I have up here on my sticky notes and things of that nature, but I never want it to be something where it's like, here, read this blog post and buy this shirt. No. I want you to feel invested in it. And I think about it all the time. Like, okay, well, what is something that I say all the time? What is something that people gravitate towards? What do my family and friends know me for? And it's like, if that was something that you needed to turn into a shirt, you would have done it before you had this blog. So I definitely appreciate the fact that you considered that and you thought about it like, well, you know what? Let me wait on that. And that leads me to my next question. With this tremendous growth within 1 year, what made you decide to have this event? Is this like a celebration of your 1 year anniversary, or was it something that you wanted to continue to prove yourself before monetizing?
No, not so much as the event is not about, the proving myself part of it. I still feel like I have a lot more proving to do. So I am constantly networking and looking for the next event where I can meet different people. But the event came from a place where it was 1 year. So when I started the blog, I had a small event at my home with just, girlfriends or girlfriends of girlfriends, some that I knew, some that I did not know, just to get a feel of their response to the blog, which was, like a tester. So before I launched. So and that went very well. Like, I was like, oh, I have to do something like this again, because I got so much content, so many questions, so much just from that little gathering. I think it was like 15 of us here. So that was like, okay, I have to do something like this again. And people were asking me, are you going to do that again? Or when are you going to do something like that again? So when I, because I do have a crazy schedule, I work 9 to 5 at the Department of Treasury. Like, so I do that. That's my career. And I don't want to do, yes, I'm sorry. And I don't want to do that forever. So I'm 10 years into that. And then, of course, I'm mom, I'm stepmom. My kids do 1,000 things. And my husband is like another kid. So, yeah, time was kind of crazy. But I was like, you know what? I'm definitely going to do that a year after I start the blog. So I just stayed with that commitment. And it just turned out to be bigger than what I expected it to be because of the growth of the blog. So, yeah. That was just something that I dedicated to myself when I first started. Like, I'm going to do this again a year after, like, when I'm a year into it. Like, whether it would have been big or another small little intimate, like I did the first time, I already stated, I spoke it. That's what I'm going to do. So that's what I'm doing. So that's more personal to me. This is more like, I care about it so much because it's so personal. Like, I just feel like I really want to just give back and, just share with people and things like that. And the only reason I didn't even want to charge for the event, but, I had to rent somewhere and I had to pay for food and stuff like that. I was like, okay. So, and I want to give away things like gift bags and things like that. So, but yeah, it's just so it makes me all bubbly inside.
Well, I hope everything goes well for you. I'm trying to figure out how I can get my ticket before they're all going. I had a friend tell me because, and I say that in the spirit of networking, I told myself earlier this year that I wasn't going to any more conferences or networking events because a lot of times I was going and I might meet a person here or there, but not really building the type of network that I was looking to build or reaching people who I feel like what I talk about is so intimate that's kind of hard to drum up that conversation in the networking spaces that I was going to. So I told my friend who's been there with me from the beginning of starting the blog, she lives in Philly. So a few years ago, I was snowed in at Philly. Long story short, she's been there throughout. And she said, okay, well, if you can wait till Friday, I'll see if I can, get the ticket for you. Because I was telling her, I said, I feel like I'm finally meeting people who are doing similar work. These are the type of people that I need to be networking with because they have similar focus. They're talking about intimate family issues.
Right.
And this is the space I need to be in as opposed to people who are doing 17,000 different things and we just have growth mindset in common. Like, yes, having growth mindset is great, but what can we build together?
Right. Absolutely. I just to say this is a little bit off topic, but just to share this with you. Do you want me to share it on here while you're recording or you want me to wait?
It's up to you. It's up to you.
So I would say one thing that I had to learn is, so I think you need different circles of people, and that I wish somebody would have told me this sooner because I would have been further. Because I think you need a group of people that you can build with. You definitely need that. You need a group of people that has already built to bring you up, and then you need a group of people that look up to you, that are coming up after you. So I think it is very important, and I will say the spurt, like the growth spurt, didn't happen until all three of those groups of people were evident to me. I wasn't putting people in categories that they didn't belong anymore. I knew exactly who belonged where, and that made things so much easier. So yeah, I definitely, we could talk off camera, but I definitely would love for you to come to the event. I would love to connect you with different people. And I think it's very good to be connected to the right people, because even when I thought of the panel, the having the panel and the panelists who was going to be there, I definitely made sure we connected in what they were their background on what they were about. Because even Janae, she's the therapist. She's like, I have this parenting group. No, Alicia, the lawyer, she has this group that she does with fathers, and she was like, I wouldn't want to talk about that at your event because that's kind of like the same thing as what you do. And I'm like, well, why not? Well, why?
Right.
From her experience, she's like, I wouldn't want to shine on you. It's enough room for all of us to win.
Absolutely.
And if you are helping somebody that maybe I can't reach, you may have information or they may like your style or something different. The goal is to help. Now, if you are connecting with people whose goal is not to help and it's just, let's just grow and get this money, that's something different. But you have to place those people in those right categories. Like I have people like that in my life. Let's just get this money. Okay. Well, I know what I need you for. So yeah.
But I like that you shared that, because I think that might be where the conflict has been coming in for me. And I have attended networking events even after saying that. But for me, it's been 2017 has been a trying year.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it there.
I was about to say the least.
I live in Baltimore, so coming and I have a lot more connections in Philly, and it's like, okay, I can't keep coming to Philly.
That's how I
and not leaving with anything, because I'm not gonna be able to come back. So that's just kind of where I was, and fortunately, I usually stay with that friend, so I never have any lodging expenses. But they were like, okay, well, if you can wait till Friday, and if it's still a ticket available, I'll do that for you, because I know.
I will save you a ticket. I will save you a ticket, and I would discount it. I just gotta take one ticket off of Eventbrite, but I will save you a ticket.
Thank you.
I got you. But yeah, I definitely would like you to come. I definitely would like to connect you with different people, you know, that do the same things that you do. You know,
I kind of felt like for a while, like, well, nobody does what I do. And my coach would be like, girl, you're tripping. And she would send me Instagram pages like, okay, this person is doing this. And I'm like, well, that's not really the same.
yeah.
But now I'm learning to look at it like, okay, it's not the same, but how is it similar? How can you connect with this person and grow with this person?
I want it to be exactly the same.
I wasn't looking for it to be exactly the same, but the examples she was sending me in the beginning to me didn't seem similar enough to what I was doing.
Okay.
And now I'm starting to find and build those relationships on my own.
Right.
I think more so because I got comfortable with utilizing all of my skills. So like you shared that you saw my poetry video. I stopped going to open mics and performing and things like that. And it's like, well, you would not believe how many people who I found in support of what I do just by going back to being who I am, as opposed to building this brand and focusing solely on this brand. Like, no, you are a whole person. You have all these other different interests. When you share those, people are able to connect with who you are, and then it's easier for you to build what you're building.
I was just talking about this with somebody. Like, I had to stop being the or and be the and. I am not just that one thing. I'm not just the secret behind the set, you know. So I am a lot of things, and I have to embrace the and. Like, you can't just put me in one box. There's no way I can't fit. So
I think I heard you say that the other night. When you said it again, I'm like, no, yeah, I was there when you said that.
Yeah. All my days are mixing together with me now. But yeah, I think that it's super dope what you're doing. I don't even, because I don't really even do lives like with people that I don't know per se, because I just want to make sure, you know, your audience, like I kind of like try to do a little background. But then when I saw you and I think you commented on a live that I was doing or something, and then you reached out after that. So, when you talked about you weren't sure that you were in a blended family until you heard what we were talking about. So I'm like, okay, you know, so I just took a shot. I'm like, okay. And I knew Thursday was bad for me, but I still said, okay. Like, you know, so to me, those are like God connections, because everything in me was like, I don't even know her. Like, you know, and this is 2 days before my event. I was running around like crazy before I ran in the house literally after my son basketball tryouts. Like, we got to do this live real quick. Then we're going to run back out. And then we.
Well, I hope I'm not holding you up. We've been talking about it.
My daughter is getting her hair done. So we're kind of like in a waiting stage anyway. So I'm like, all right, we're going to drop her off. We're going to go to your sign up. We're going to go in the house and do this live. Then we're going to go back and pick Toy up. And then that's my life though. Like, so, so yeah. But yeah, I think it's super dope. I'm definitely going to check out the DaaamnDaddy and and read up on it, because like it just feels right, you know. I like to feel instead of just
Okay. So I didn't have any other questions lined up for you tonight. Is there anything else that you would like to share, or you felt like you want to make sure that the audience gets to know about you and what you do before we close out?
I think we shared a lot. I just want to say, you know, my blog is geared towards helping people with situations with I always have a hard time with that word. Similar. See, I can't say it now. Similar, I believe, situations that I go through. So it's not to say that each family is the same. But it's just a guideline of certain things that as a blended family, these are some things we struggle with. So, it's no forcing of no opinion. It's just me, how I got through certain situations, and it may be able to help, you know, someone else. And which it has been, it's grown tremendously. That's why I'm looking to do a lot more features to get other people's input on how they deal with their blended family. Of course, you know, sprinkling in a few blogs and Q&As, but my main focus now are the features. Because I think people relate more when they hear someone else's story, you know, on how they got through things. It is not just one person's experience. So, yeah.
Well, if you ever want to talk to someone who was a stepchild, I have a plethora of step parents. Like my friend, I was telling her, my stepsister got married recently. And I kind of had a mental breakdown after the wedding. And my stepfather was like, come here, like, what's wrong with you? And I didn't even want to talk to him about it, but I shared with her the nature of the conversation. She was like, that's your dad. Like, he may not be your father, but That's your dad. That relationship and that bond that we have, and how he could sense that something was wrong with me.
Right.
So, and then on my father's side, my brother and my sister, my father's other children, I didn't meet them until I was a teenager.
Okay.
But their moms are very, when I'm there, I'm their daughter. Like when I'm around their family, there is no awkward, who's this extra person? Me and my brother look just alike. We have like the same face, he's just taller. And being around his family, he got married this summer, and I brought one of my friends with me, and she was like, shocked at how I didn't stick out. I was embraced. So I have that experience on several levels as far as being embraced in other people's families.
Yeah, I think that is I think that is very important. And that's what my family, I was kind of shocked as to how my family gravitated towards my stepchildren. Like the only way you would know my stepchildren or my stepchildren is because they called me stepmom. They called my dad, pop, my mom, grandma, my aunts, so the only, like, once they call me stepmom, I always get the his turn, like, who's the step? Like, who, so I think that that's super dope. And I was super happy that my family is like that. They take my biological son, my stepkids for the summer. Like it's no separation, and if they don't want to go, or if like my stepson's mom might have different plans for him, we all work together. It's a village.
There was one more question I had. I saw on your blog where your stepson's mom had a conversation with you because your stepson asked her if it was okay for him to love you. Yeah. What was that conversation like, and how old was he? Because I think a lot of times children are innocent and they ask those questions because it's not that he had any, and I won't assume what it was, but it may not have been that he had any qualms about loving you. It may be that he didn't want to hurt his mom.
Absolutely, and that's what it was. I think he was like 5, young, but not young, not like 3 or 4. I think he was like 5 or 6. Yeah, and I think he felt, one thing that I would say, I think he felt that we didn't have a real relationship back then, me and his mom, but we didn't have any type of, there was like no, what word am I looking for? No like drama really, but there was no, us being around each other. We were just cordial. So I think that he felt like he may have been betraying his mom by loving me. He knew I was there. He knew what I was there for. But to actually make his mom okay with sharing stories about me, because that's what she said, like, that was a bad conversation. But him asking her, was it okay for him to love me, was him talking about me to her. Like, he first didn't feel comfortable, like, oh, she did this, like, to make it like a happy thing. It was like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to hurt my mom's feelings, like, kind of talking about me. So, yeah, he asked her, was it okay for him to love me? And I'm happy that he asked that, because that conversation right there brought so much light to me, for me and her, to kind of be like, this is so much bigger than us, so we need to. And she's actually the one who introduced, well, let's get to know each other. Because I was all for, as long as we cordial, we cool. It was no problem. So once we got to the cordial spot, that's where I parked. But she actually introduced the, let's try to get to know each other, so we could build a very organic relationship, as opposed to, this is just, you're the new girl. So yeah.
Well, that's awesome that he was able to facilitate that relationship between the two of you.
Yeah, it was. That's my baby. He's not a baby. He's way bigger than me, way taller than me. He doesn't want anything to do with me right now.
Well, I thank you so much for your time this evening and sharing your stories and your family with me. For anybody who's watching this or watching the replay, her event, Blended, Beautiful, and Blessed, is a brunch this Saturday, November 18th at 11 a.m. You can get your tickets at The Secret Behind the Step at eventbrite.com.
Yeah.
Or .eventbrite.com.
Yeah, The Secret Behind the Step .eventbrite.com. Yep. And I think that there is only like 5 left, but you guys still have a day. So, I mean, if anybody is interested, definitely it's going to be a very, very good event. Very, very good panel. So many resources. If you ever felt like you thought like, oh, maybe I need to go to court for this, or maybe I might need to talk to a therapist, or maybe all of your maybes can be answered by real people. So so yeah, it's going to be a dope event. Come check it out. I can't wait to finally meet you. I hope you're able to make it.
Me too. I just had a whole planning day, like, okay, well, if I do this, I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna go there. And my mom was like, well, if you're gonna do all of that, you might as well stay up here and then we'll go down for Thanksgiving together. I'm like, oh. So hopefully that all works out wonderfully. And again, thank you for
Well,
your time.
definitely, you're welcome, and definitely hit me up. I'll DM you my phone number. So hit me up and let me know, what's what, and we'll talk.
All righty.